Okay, so we're going to start graphing square root functions, and we're going to start with this one, which is 2 times the square root of x minus 1 plus 2. First, you want to make yourself a table. Now with that table, you want to make sure that you put in the middle your term that makes the root 0, which in this case is going to be 1. Then you're going to start typing those values into your equation, and hopefully getting out some values that would make some sense. The first one, when you put it in, is going to be a domain error because you can't take the square root of a negative. Same with the second one. Now when you put 1 in, you're going to end up with 2. That's going to be this number over here always. Then you're going to put in 2 and 3, and then I'm actually going to extend this to 4 because I want to make sure that I'm plotting at least 4 points. So then you put those values in and you should end up with these ones. Then you're going to make your coordinate grid on the right hand side here. And you'll start plotting your points after that. So first you go to 1, 2, then 2, 4, and then 4.8, and then 5.5. So then you're going to connect those dots. And then you'll end up with a graph that looks like that, which is about a half a parabola turned sideways. That's what you want. Lastly, we need to discuss the domain and range. So the domain of this function is your first x value and then up from there. So in this case, your domain is going to be x is greater than or equal to 1. Your range is your y values, and that's going to be your y values, which is 2, 4, 4.8. Those are all greater than 2, so then you'd put greater than or equal to 2. So that's how we're going to graph square roots. Next, we're going to graph cube roots. Now we're going to graph this cube root function, which is 2 times the cube root of x plus 1 minus 3. So first you want to make yourself a table, and once again you want to start with a value that's going to make your root part 0, in this case negative 1. So you're going to set your table up like this, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, and 1, because negative 1 will make this root part 0. Now you're going to put those values into your calculator. Be very careful. You're going to want to make sure that you have parentheses here and also out here, because your graph for the cube root needs to make sure that you close that in. So now you're going to put that into your calculator and hopefully end up with the same values I do. So you should end up with negative 5.5, negative 5, negative 3, negative 1, and negative 0.5. Now you're going to make yourself your coordinate grid, your xy axis, and then you're going to start plotting your points. So the first point is going to be negative 3, negative 5.5, which will be right there. And then negative 2, negative 5 is going to be right there. Then you're going to have negative 1, negative 3, 0, negative 1, and then 1, negative 0.5. So then we're going to connect our dots here. And so it's going to look very similar to the square root function, but actually it's going to be 2 halves of a square root function that's looking more like a cube root. Lastly, we need to talk about domain and range. So your domain in this case, because you got an arrow pointing to the left and a right, and no breaks in the middle, that means it's going to be all real numbers. And then your range is going to also be all real numbers. And for all cube root functions, that's going to be the case. Now the last section of the test talks about, the last part of that section, talks about the translations and transformations. Now in this case, you're going to have a horizontal stretch, or I'm sorry, a vertical stretch of 2, and that's going to be because of this 2 in front. It's going to move left 1 unit, that's because of the plus 1, and it's going to move down 3 units, that is because of the minus 3. So those are going to be your 3 transformations. The other type of transformation is if you had a negative in front, in which case that would flip over your graph. So now you should be ready to do the practice test and enjoy getting ready for your retakes.